Now, Free Iran Global Summit, we didn't even know about this. We kind of stumbled across it by talking to my next guest. The Free Iran Global Summit is the online event, notable figures attending, former FBI Director Louis Freeh, let's see, a British MP Steve McCabe, Candice Bergen, former leader of the Canadian Conservative Party. The summit has 1,000 dignitaries attending. There's a rally against, as I say, all of this is going on, the Free Iran conference, because it was on this 30th of June, so that's when it was happened. 30th of June, it happened. It was the Iranian People's Uprising of a Democratic Republic, and I didn't even know that this was going on at the moment. It's an interesting case as well. A lot of stuff going on. There's a rally in Paris. Over 1,000 people are in the center talking about to commemorate the Iran freeing itself. Let's just see if we've got Eve on the line. She is live in Paris. Eve Trophic, broadcaster and journalist, joins me now. Eve, you know, this is the sad thing. I was just saying to one of our producers, this is one of the sad things that unfortunately certain mainstream media lose stories like this. It's a really important one while these riots are going on. Just tell us, I mean, Free Iran is something that Free Iran conference happens every single year with some really heavy hitters and plus people in the streets. Just tell us what we're seeing behind you, what's going on.
Right, so I'm at the 2023 World Summit in Paris. It's organised by the President, Mariam Rajavi. She's something of a hero in the Free Iran world and somebody who's supporting the resistance. We've also got Mike Pence here, and Liz Truss has confirmed that she will be here as one of the speakers as well. So unfortunately, what we're seeing is this isn't actually been reported in the media enough. Newspapers don't particularly want to touch it, and the newspapers that do touch it are covering the, you know, sensationalist events, but not actually saying there are people here living in perjury every single day in Iran. There are people who have fled Iran and who are currently living in the UK and US. And I've spoken to some of them today. They say not much has changed since the 80s. So, yeah, it's really, really sad.
Well, I'm glad that we can talk about it with you because, as you say, it's not reported. It's not, and especially with the riots going on, that, as you say, that is what the focus is. Just tell us about, I mean, you've got people behind you, so there are actually people going on a march for this as well?
Yeah, so the rally was in central Paris. Here is the actual summit, and inside there will be the politicians. There's over 100 politicians and former US congressmen and politicians, including John Bolton and General James Jones. So they're, you know, quite prominent names. They've been involved with Iran for a number of years now, including several MEPs and MPs as well. So they're in there at the moment talking about, you know, what we can do to actually help facilitate these people's freedom and change the regime, which unfortunately doesn't seem something that's entirely possible at the moment.
The last we heard from Iran, I'm going on major newspapers on front page headlines, was, you know, the riots and women around headscarves, all of that. And then it goes really quiet. Unless it's dramatic, people tend to forget what's going on in Iran.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's almost as if they're ignoring. This is a daily reality for these people. It's not a headline. It's not clickbait. This is how people are living their lives. There are women out there who are getting arrested and abused by police, who are showing a small amount of hair at the front of their niqab. And, you know, at the forefront of this resistance are women and young women as well. And I think that's important to note. There is an undercurrent of change. There is an undercurrent of resistance, and it is led by women.
Eve, one of the things that always fascinates me are those journalists, true journalists, who look in places where other people don't look. They often have a reason for doing that. Do you have one?
I most certainly do. I don't think I've been a journalist for 8 years, and I don't think mainstream news and mainstream newspapers are doing enough to cover it. I think they're more interested in clicks and advertising revenue than they are actually reporting news which is a terrible shame because so many of us go into journalism with the idea that we're going to help people and give a voice to the voiceless.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the women around you, have you heard stories, or what are the sorts of stories that you've heard that just remind you why doing what you're doing is so important?
That's it. I've heard from several prisoners who've been imprisoned in Iran. One lady, she got out just before the mass execution of 30,000 people. So she saw all of her cellmates die. And she was held in prison for a number of years for simply attending a rally. She was treated horribly by the police. And she said at the forefront was the idea that women weren't allowed to have ideas. She was a teenager at the time. I think she was 17 years old. I've heard of 14-year-olds being put in prison, mothers and daughters, and having to, ferry out information from inside and risking their lives to do so because they believed it that strongly that, people should know about this.
Now, some people would say, I'm sure there will be, unfortunately, some people who roll their eyes and saying, why should we care? We've got the cost of living crisis. You also have freedom to talk about the cost of living crisis, I might add. But, why do you think that more people in the UK should be concerned about this? And if so, why?
I think in the UK, we should stand for democracy globally. And I think, yes, we are undergoing cost of living crisis, which we are all feeling the effects of. And that's not to belittle that whatsoever. But if you stand for freedom, the freedom to vote, the freedom to be a woman, the freedom to walk down the street safely, then you should support the resistance in Iran. And I think that, if you don't support that, then you're not, if you're happy to live like that and have others live like that, you're not really understanding what it is to be human.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And people need to remember as well that Iran is a nuclear power, when it comes to Russia, when it comes to Ukraine and what have you. So the same, the power is held in very precarious hands. I want to thank you so much, Eve, for alerting us to this, because as you say, I had to Google it. It is so buried in all of this that's going on in Paris. And it's an interesting one that you've got so many important heads of state in a city that is going through so much turmoil because they're, let's say, a lack of focus. According to the people who are rioting, they've been left to rot, you could say, from their point of view. It's an interesting one that here you are having a Free Iran rally every year as well at the same time.
Yes, definitely. And obviously, I really feel for the young girl that did get killed. And that is something also that's very important. But yeah, thank you so much. It's absolutely lovely to talk to you, Trisha, and take care.
You too. Thank you so much. Eve Trowfoot there talking about a very important conference with some really major